E.T. the Extraterrestrial has been re-released in theaters all across the country, and I got the chance to watch it in my local IMAX theater as they celebrate its 40th anniversary this summer. A cinematic masterpiece that still holds up to this day. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I appreciate you guys tuning in to talk about movies with me again. I really appreciate that. I recently got the chance to watch E.T. for the very first time because they're celebrating their 40th anniversary of the film being made. I've never watched it before, and man, I'm so glad I got to watch this in the theater. Before we talk about the movie, though, I think it's really important to talk about just how amazing movie theaters are. I watched this movie in my local IMAX theater with a bunch of other families, taking their kids out, just to see this fantastic movie that their parents probably grew up with, their grandparents probably grew up with. There was a lot of people in the theater, and it's just genuinely nice to watch the movie with a crowd, because all these kids, just like me, I was watching the movie for the very first time too. All these kids are watching something that they've never seen before. You know, they're probably really young, and they're watching this story of a boy, a really lonely boy who's in dire need of a friend, and he finds that friend, and later in the end he has to let go of him. It's so cool to kind of, you know, get everybody into one compact space and be able to watch it all at the same time, all synchronized. Some of the best moments in my life happened in a movie theater. Not gonna tell you which parts. And yeah, man, I really love that they're bringing it back. They brought it back for the 20th anniversary, I believe, and I'm really glad they brought it back again for the 40th anniversary. And I'm really glad I got to watch it with other people that haven't watched it, and with people that have watched it and love it, and you know, are like literally waiting for other people's reactions to certain parts and certain scenes. I can hear the kids laugh and cry up in the very first row. It's just, I'm such a big advocate for movie theaters in general. And yeah, so anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about the movie E.T. I really enjoyed this movie. E.T. the Extraterrestrial was directed by Steven Spielberg, and it follows Elliot, a young boy who's sort of lonely, and he comes across an alien who gets stuck on Earth and tries to help him find his way home. The movie was originally released in 1982, and Spielberg actually hatched the idea in 1980 based on like an imaginary friend that he had while his parents were going through a divorce. What's really inspiring to me about this movie is the fact that it was as simple as, we have an idea for a movie, let's go make the movie. For someone who wants to make movies for a living, a story like this is very inspiring, and it just motivates me even more. You know, this movie was relatively cheap. I mean, $10 million, I'll take $10 million right now, but a $10 million budget for a movie is not it's very low budget, as what they would call it for a Hollywood movie. And this movie ended up making $792 million at the box office, surpassing Star Wars for the highest grossing film of all time at the time. And it held that spot for a pretty long time. I think it held it for like 9 years or so, until another Steven Spielberg movie came in, titled Jurassic Park, which we might review later on. But Jurassic Park knocked it off the spot. Still super impressive that, you know, $10 million, you're getting a $782 million profit at that point. You know, I know that's not the actual number. There's marketing costs and stuff like that you have to go through, but yeah, it's a huge profit. And because of the huge profit, I'm really surprised that the studio didn't try to force a sequel, because that's something that we're really accustomed to now, is that a movie with, you know, a very small budget makes a lot of money. It makes a lot of sense to make a sequel because you want to capitalize on that name, you want to capitalize on that brand, that movie, the stars, you want to capitalize on it all and make another one. Make more money for us, you know? But this movie actually didn't get a sequel. They've tried to get a sequel going for so long. Let me look this up here. Let's see. Yeah, it was canceled. So apparently Steven Spielberg and the writer Melissa Matheson wrote a treatment for a sequel called E.T. 2 Nocturnal Fears. It would have shown Elliot and his friends getting kidnapped by evil aliens and attempting to contact E.T. for help. Spielberg was against pursuing it, apparently, and it would just, his quotes, would do nothing but rob the original of its virginity. So it's just really amazing that the fact that how big this movie was and it didn't get a sequel. I really don't think it needed a sequel. I think a lot of people know that this movie does not need a sequel because it's just so perfect, and we're going to talk about that here now. The movie is fantastic. I can't believe I'm just now watching it. The director, Steven Spielberg, he handles everything in this movie so perfectly. The comedy, the drama, the pacing of the entire movie, it just feels so tight knitted, and everything about this movie feels perfect to me. I can't explain to you what perfect feels like because, again, film criticism is subjective, but damn, dude, this movie feels perfect to me. The entire cast is so good, but I can't talk about everybody. I do want to single out one lead actor, and of course that's Henry Thomas. He's the child actor who plays Elliot, and he's this young boy who doesn't seem to have many friends until he meets E.T. He plays this perfectly. One of the greatest child performances I've ever seen. And keep in mind, this was made in 1982. Henry Thomas makes you root for this character, and he's kind of like he's like our gateway to E.T.'s emotions, right? So everything that we see Henry go through, anything that we see Elliot go through, it's almost like E.T. is going through the exact same thing. You've seen it in those scenes where E.T. is drinking a beer. You see a lot of compatibility between the two characters of E.T. and Elliot. Not only does that speak volumes for the writing itself of the movie, but I think it speaks volumes for Henry Thomas's performance, because it's almost like he's acting for both characters. You know, because these two characters are both so similar, Henry Thomas has a lot more speaking lines than E.T. It almost feels like Henry Thomas is E.T., you know? I mean, he did such a great job at delivering every single line in the movie. Insanely great job, not only for a kid, but just an actor in general in the entire movie. Again, like I said, the dynamic between Elliot and E.T. feels one and the same. My best way to describe it is it feels like two kids meeting at recess at the playground, and they just instantly become best friends. It feels like Elliot really needs E.T. at the moment, and it really feels like E.T. needs Elliot at the moment also. Speaking of E.T., I love the design of E.T. It's all practical too, which it makes it looks 100 times better in my opinion. And even 40 years later, it still holds up, not just like the bare minimum, but it looks really good. The character of E.T. cracked me up in every single scene he was in. I mean, the part of him drinking beer is one of the parts that made me laugh out loud. E.T. dressing up as a girl, E.T. fainting on the Polaroid shot. We go through this journey with E.T. this entire movie, and not once do I feel like, oh, why are we rooting for this character again? You know, he doesn't have many lines, and he's also not used as like a plot device either, right? He feels a lot like his own character, and he feels a lot like Elliot's best friend. Like there's a purpose for E.T. to be in the movie, if you know what I mean. E.T. never felt out of place. It never felt like the movie was straying too far away from its core mission of trying to get E.T. home while also developing Elliot's character and the rest of his family too. And E.T. feels like a kid, man. He feels like exactly like how Elliot, and you know, it feels like E.T. is going through the exact same stuff that Elliot is going through. He feels like a kid, and it brings a whole fun and lighthearted experience to the entire movie once you watch it, because it feels like the entire movie you're watching two kids just learn. It honestly makes me really happy to watch. Also, at the time, apparently this is not something that you would have expected from an alien movie. I mean, E.T., you think of an extraterrestrial, you think of aliens coming down to Earth, abducting human beings, but this one wants just to go home, and he wants to make friends and stuff. But at the end of the day, he just wants to go home. You know, he doesn't want to stay on Earth. He just wants to go home. The movie tackles so many themes that resonate with young people still to this day. The themes of family, friendship, loneliness, and just the youthfulness and playfulness of kids are what I think people love so much about the movie, because something about the movie still has like this spectacle, this wonder, especially with the visuals of E.T. and Elliot flying through the sky. I mean, it doesn't get more iconic than that. Speaking of iconic, I mean, this whole movie has been a part of the cultural zeitgeist for the last 40 years, ever since it came out, right? I mean, if you guys know your history, apparently Universal reached out to M&M's. Originally, they wanted to have the candy that Elliot used in the movie to lure E.T. They wanted that to be M&M's, but they declined because they didn't want their candy in some stupid movie, I guess. And Reese's came in, they made Reese's Pieces, and now Reese's Pieces are iconic for E.T. I really love 80s movies and the 80s aesthetics. I mean, obviously I wasn't born in the 80s, so I honestly have no idea how it was like, but everything about it just seems so amazing. And obviously my favorite movie of all time is going to be Back to the Future, set in 1985. So I mean, everything about this movie I love too. You know, just the old Coke bottles, the style of the clothing, the old cars. I mean, everything looks really nice, and I love it. Another interesting part of the movie was that unlike most films, E.T. was shot through rough chronological order to kind of give the younger actors an easier way to act like emotional scenes. So they filmed it in a way that the young cast isn't filming the ending of the movie where it's supposed to be really dramatic and really emotional heavy on the first day, and then the second day is like the start of the movie. You know, they filmed it all in order. You don't really see that most of the time because everybody has super busy schedules now. I thought that was pretty interesting. I just wanted to share that with you guys. One thing I want to talk about before we go though, the story and the performances are truly perfect in my opinion, but I really want to talk about this score. John Williams composed a score that is so emotional, and watching the movie and that final scene in particular in the theater of Elliot saying goodbye to E.T. with that music just pounding in your ears through that speaker. It's such an impactful moment that honestly made me tear up as I was watching it. Such a perfect ending to a perfect movie, and the music just elevated that moment even more. John Williams eventually won Best Original Score for his work, and it's so well deserved. There's so much that I love about this movie, and I'm really glad that I watched it in a theater as part of the 40th anniversary release. This is just one of those movies that you really have to watch because I never understood why so many people love E.T., but then I watched it and it's just a perfect movie. I think there's not a lot of perfect movies in my opinion, but for me, this movie is perfect. If you guys got around to watching it for the 40th anniversary re-release, let me know what you guys thought about the movie. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to talk about movies with me, especially this one. This was a really good one to talk about. Before you guys go though, if you guys can do me a quick favor, like the video down below if you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out. I put out movie content like this all the time, so stick around for that. Subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss another video that I put out. We're putting out videos like crazy for the rest of the year, trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the time 2022 ends. Again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to talk about movies with me. I really appreciate it. Anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.